Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu bika min syururina wa min sayyiati a'malina may yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlil fala hadiya lahu wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, very good morning to everyone who are here with us today, okay, this morning. So today it's a very special day because we have with us, okay, Professor Insinyur Technologist Dr. Muhammad Rizal Arshad from UNIMAP. Okay, we are here today for a very special session for the postgraduate students. Okay, and the talk is also very special. Okay, because we are not talking about the technical journey of our PhD, but more on how we manage our stress and or for some the isolation during our postgraduate journey. And this talk is brought to you by none other than PERINTIS or Persatuan Saintis Muslim Malaysia. Okay, so if you don't know what is PERINTIS, it is actually a registered organization in Malaysia which consists of Muslim professional scientists, engineers as well as technocrats. Okay, I'm so sorry, I have some drilling going on near my house, but basically PERINTIS has a very special and unique tagline, which is science for the well-being of creations. And they have the vision to be the platform of choice for science to bring blessings for all creations. MashaAllah, Subhanallah. And they also write their mission as to lead in the development, establishment, and utilization of science for the well-being of man and the environment. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry for this drilling voice. Okay. So I'll try to cut short. Okay. I will go straight to Prof. Rizal, but before that, maybe I can introduce Prof. Rizal a little bit. Okay. So Prof. Muhammad Rizal Arshad graduated from the University of Liverpool, UK in July 1994 with a Bachelor of Engineering in Medical Electronics and Instrumentation. And later, 1 year later, he got his Master of Science in Electronic Control and Engineering from another university, which is the University of Salford in 1995. And later, in January 1999, he obtained his PhD degree. So sorry, in electronic engineering. Okay, Prof, maybe I shall let you introduce your area of specialization and so on. Okay, I'm so sorry for the noise. If you, I can directly to you, Prof. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera. A very big thank you to Dr. Asma for the kind introduction. So I hope my voice is clear enough to the listeners. I'm sorry, I'm using my built-in microphone on the desktop. I do not have the independent ones. Anyway, alhamdulillah, we already entered the nearly entered the last phase of Ramadan. I think this day 18 of Ramadan, and I wish and may dua that all of you have benefited and have increased our ibadah in terms of our obedience to Allah SWT, increase our prayers, our recitation of the Quran, our zikr, etc., so that we gain as much benefit from Ramadan as much as possible. And before I jump into the topic, I would say that Ramadan is a month of us trying to formulate a new behavior, a new way of working, or to strengthen our mode of work in terms of daily life, our career for the next 11 months. That means so that whatever the regular trainings that we are having now, going through now in Ramadan, we can then later extend it for the rest of the 11 months before, hopefully, Bismillah, we meet another Ramadan next year, inshallah. So I was given the title, Managing Stress and Isolation During Postgraduate Journey. I think the introduction by the moderator very apt, very fit the title, because she looks a bit stressed with the sound from the background. So anyway, she managed to manage the stress anyway. So by training, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not I think a psychologist or somebody who trains on in terms of counseling probably would be better covering the topics technically. But I would basically share my take on my own experience of doing PhD and my own experience supervising my students, be it masters and PhD students during their postgraduate journey. So I hope if I speak too fast or too slow, probably you can just trigger me so that I can improve my presentation. So as mentioned by Dr. Asma, I was trained. I got my degree in Liverpool University back in 1994. My first degree was in Bachelor of Medical Electronics Bachelor in Medical Electronics and Instrumentation. And I was lucky because I was the first batch in Liverpool University for the program. There were only three of us in the first batch taking this program. So alhamdulillah, we graduated successfully. And then I've continued doing my master's in electronic control engineering because I got my scholarship from University of Science Malaysia back then for me to pursue my master's and PhD study. So USM back then, I was instructed basically to do control, to be an expert in control system. In comparison to my first degree, which was in medical electronics or bioengineering. Basically to the application of engineering in medical field. So I switched field into control system. So, and then for PhD, I've done electronic engineering. I stray a bit into vision system, but then I graduated in January 1999 in basically focusing on underwater vision system, the apparatus, the instruments. Alhamdulillah, back then I've joined USM on the 8th of March. I remember the date, 1999, until 30th October 2019 before I left USM, at least temporarily for now, to come to University of Malaysia Perlis, where I'm now the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic and International. So it is around 2099, so it will be around 22, 23 years kind of academic experience. So I'm not that young, as you can see. So let us go into the topic that I would share a bit with you, so that as I said, you are free to challenge my opinion. If I've spoken something which is wrong, please do correct me. But I'm just sharing my own experience. Can we continue the slides? Okay, why must we understand the processes involved in completing the postgraduate journey and the associated challenges? I think as an engineer, as someone who is embarking on a very significant step in our life, be it personally or academically, we must really understand the process involved, what are required for us to complete our journey. Yeah, it is akin like when you go for a journey, you want to travel somewhere, you want to know how long are we going for this trip, what's needed, what do I need to bring, what do I need to prepare in order for me to go to this for this trip and come back safely. So we must understand this is very crucial. I think it's not just us fulfilling the requirement to enter the program for the postgraduate program, but we must before we join, we must understand what's needed, or at least in the earlier part of our journey, we must try to understand what are the processes, what will be the processes involved in order for us to complete our journey. Okay, if I would like to, if I reflect my own experience, I remember I did my master's in about 1 year, 2 months. I was supposed to do in 1 year, but I did it in 1 year, 2 months, because somehow along the way I have to return to Malaysia to get married. so there's no way around that thing. So I have to come back, return to Malaysia and got married. So I think that's my own main reason why it was extended for another 2 months. But I know the requirement. I need to submit a thesis. Back then, for master by course in Salford University, there's no viva or something, but you need to submit it, and you will be considered. I think I remember there is a presentation, but not a full-fledged viva because it's a master by course. And I remember some of my friends from few of them from Greece, for example, they didn't manage to pass the first half of the requirement to complete the master, so they only got a postgraduate diploma. I remember that because they did not complete the first phase of, which is the first 6 months of the master program. You need to pass it successfully, satisfactorily, before you can proceed into your research project, and then submit your thesis. So alhamdulillah, finish it in end of 1995. Then in January 1996, I was told by USM back then that I need to complete it within 3 years. If not, I have to pay this, etc. There's a lot of financial implication which I know I wouldn't be able to afford, because so I know the process, what are needed. I remember attending the courses on PhD study and what's needed, what's not, what you should do, what shouldn't do, etc. Alhamdulillah, on January 1999, I completed everything exactly on the dot, 3 years. Then I came back in March to serve USM. But I remember reading it, what's needed, what are expected from me in order for me to complete my postgraduate journey. And of course, what you read and what you go through, in my experience, is I would say almost 70%, 80% are different in terms of your relationship, in terms of what should happen, what shouldn't happen. Sometimes things change, right? And then by understanding the processes, then we can anticipate in terms of the challenges that probably will be in our way. So I would say for any postgraduate students or even supervisors, I think both parties must know what are the processes, probable processes that you're going to face, and what are the most likely challenges. I think in my case, my supervisor, Prof. Jim Lucas, he's an emeritus professor now in Liverpool, still assisting with University of Liverpool, but I think he's already went for his pension, but still associated with University of Liverpool. He got 2 groups of students. I'm in the group where I'm not depending on him financially. So he's not providing me any financial support. He is just giving me the research kind of supervision, supervisory kind of advices. And he has my colleagues, another group which is fully under his support in terms of contract research, being paid monthly allowance. So I can see different style of supervising for both type of students. But then and me coming from Malaysia and those students coming from mostly of them from the UK. So the way my supervisor handled us, obviously it was very different. Okay, so that means we must understand. What are the things that we're going to have to do, the probable things that we have to go through probably, and in order to complete our journey. And it is a journey. I think PhD is a very unique experience. There is no 2 PhD which is the same. There's never going to be the same PhD experience for any 2 person. So I would say even alhamdulillah, I finished in 3 years, but doesn't mean that those who finish in 3 years is much better than those who finish in 5 years. I have my colleagues who finish in 5 years, I have colleagues who finish in 4 years, etc. But one cannot compare the quality, because a PhD, as I mentioned in many other forums, a PhD is getting a license for research. It's a license for research. So you know the do and don'ts of doing research, of driving this vehicle called research work, and you got the license. You are now the driver. But that's it. So that means a PhD is just a journey, a process in an academic career. A PhD, a postgraduate qualification, is just a license for us to continue further. Okay. So can I proceed to the next slides? And as a control person, I'm a control person. We have this control person will know this block diagram. So you have the R is the input, what's the desired input that you want, the desired condition that you want, and then you have the Y, which is the actual output that you got. So, and then there's a feedback. There's a feedback from the right hand side to the left hand side, and then there's an error. That means the R is the desired, the Y is the actual output that you got, and you have the error. So you go to the controller. The controller will try to do some intervention to the system, provide an input to the system itself, and then the system will run, and hopefully you get the output Y that will match the desired output R. So I think this is for a control system engineer, this is very common. So, but then again, we know that any system, there will be disturbances to the system. So the system in this case is us. Is us. Let's say I'm a PhD student. I'm the system. I'm the PhD student. I'm the system there. And then we need to be able to measure what's happening, what's the parameter we need to know. We need to be able to identify what to measure, what to monitor and measure in order for us to manage the situation. So they call it measure, monitor, and manage. So as a system, as a person, as a student of postgraduate study, I need to be able to monitor my progress and measure what's happening to me in terms of my progress, and then to manage what I need to do in terms of the controller, what I need to do to change. But then again, of course, some people they are able to manage. Some people they are not able to manage. Some people they are not even able to measure what's happening, what's wrong with them. So some students they have this delusion that they are so great. I'm sure that I will recover without really identifying what's the actual problem that he or she is facing. So I think this is the self-reflection of a student is necessary, especially when you got a supervisor who are who a bit less fair in terms of the supervision. That means, you know, supervisors have different character. I think like human, we have different characters, different behavior, and so same goes with the supervisor. If you got a supervisor who are very, you know, they like to, in terms of they do a very close supervision. That means they do very regular updates. They really supervise closely. Probably they have only maybe one or two students. They really grill you. Probably the way you respond will be different because you have a supervisor which will help you to identify your issues that you're having as a student. But by chance you got a student a supervisor, sorry, who are a bit less fair, who a bit they do not like to directly supervise student closely every day. It's like off kind of more independent kind of supervision mode, and then the student now have to be careful, be more wary in terms of he or she needs to be aware of what's the actual problem that he or she is facing. The supervisor, in my case, I had a supervisor who, because I'm not under his he's not my paymaster. He was not paying for any of my tuition fees. So I was left like I was a bit independent, offhand. I mean, I was asked, he guide me, so I need to really navigate myself on my own. As compared, when I see my other colleagues who are directly under him, he really supervise because he need to be answerable because you know he's paying for the students. So I mean, the type of supervisor will affect the motivation and the way a student will perform in his or her PhD study. That's why, as I said, if you ask me, what between topics, between universities and between supervisors, which are the most important element that will ensure the success of PhD, I would say the supervisor, and the supervisor. You may be working in you may have the best university with the best facility, with the best funded program, but you have the worst supervisor, you'll fail. So, so that means at the end of the day, it's about human-to-human interaction. So that means as a student, you need to be able to measure your problem, to sense what's your problem, to monitor your progress, and then in order for you to manage the situation. We must remember that we must know, as especially for PhD student, the success of your study is wholly in your hands. So that we must take charge, we must take responsibility of the success of our study. And success of study, successfully completing a PhD study is just one of the options. I would say that even if a student, a PhD student, did not successfully complete his PhD study or her PhD study, he or she can still benefit a lot from the journey. This is the point I want to highlight there. That once you embark on a PhD journey or postgraduate, or in this case a PhD journey, it is an opportunity to improve ourselves, to gain new knowledge, to gain new skills, to build our mental capacity, our intellect, the way we think, the way we critically think. This is the journey. The journey will teach us. So that means if you sincerely embark on a journey, a student sincerely embark on a journey, and with the right mindset, hoping that putting all the efforts, taking all the having all the strategies and planning and implementing it with or without a supervisor assisting fully or partially, he or she will be successful. To me, he or she will be successful, even at the end he or she did not complete the PhD, maybe fail during Viva, etc. I would say he or she did not lose anything from the experience. So when we go for postgraduate journey, we are talking about getting the experience and gaining as much experience as possible from the journey. So I say this block diagram captures what I want to say. That means there are a lot of disturbances in terms of ourselves, coming from us, psychologically, our thinking, our motivation. Probably some of us are not used to being away from our families. Some of us this is the first time we are away outside Malaysia, or even we're doing in Malaysia. This is the first time that normally we like a very close kind of supervision kind of approach. Yet we got a supervisor which is that leave everything to us, like very independent kind of mode of supervision. So we need to be able to handle this disturbances. Some students, they have no issues with motivation. They are very motivated, but they have a lot of issues in terms of funding. They are still unsure in terms of whether they got a 2 years, for example, based on a project kind of support monthly allowance, but then they're still unsure whether he or she is going to get the balance of 1 year, for example. This kind of financial pressure. There are other issues, like, for example, of course, in terms of family issues, family issues. There are many issues that can affect the success of a student on his or her PhD postgraduate journey. It's just what I'm trying. If I want to encapsulate what I'm saying, is that from your R, from your desired output, and your Y, your actual output, you need to be able to measure what are these discrepancies, what needs to be done. For example, now I'll give you an example. In many universities, including UNIMED, for example, we put requirements. That means in order for you, in UNIMED, we put points. You need to have 15 points or something in terms of publications. This 15 point can be contributed from journal publication, conference publication, etc. So until you collect the 15 points, you cannot submit your thesis. So these are the requirements. So you measure, okay, I already still got 10. I only got 10 now, so I need another 5. So what do I do? So I need to publish in this journal, this conference, etc. So this is the control action. The error is the control. So the error is the discrepancies, or the difference, and what are the action? The controller is the action that we need to take. I think in terms of completing a PhD study, this is the thing, to identify the issues and to take real actions. And I would say, if after a year or even 2 years, and you realize that a PhD study is no longer for you, I think actions must be taken, decision must be made. You cannot just prolong your. Now in my position as a DVC and academic and international in this university, I do face situation where our fellows that goes overseas realize a problem in the first year, did not do anything, goes in second year, did not do anything, goes to third year, did not do anything, and yet now a lot more problems are coming. So this is the thing. We must take actions. We must do no matter how small in order to change our situations. So can I have next slides? So I think I'm supposed to talk about how to manage stress. I think stress is something that we can't avoid. We can't avoid when doing a PhD, especially when we embark on a postgraduate journey, especially PhD. We can't avoid all the stress and all the anxiety associated with it. But if we understand the process required, and we understand that, and we have the right mindset, I would say the right mindset, we should, inshallah, we should be able to complete our study. And I'm, for one, not for the GOT approach. To be fair, just to be honest about it, I'm not for the GOT approach. I wouldn't mind for a student to take time to grow, to build their maturity and the critical thinking in especially for PhD. Because for me, when you do a PhD, when a student goes for a PhD, he or she are developing the character, the traits of a researcher, of a professional researcher, of an independent researcher and independent thinker. It takes time. So if we are a bit we are not that strict to ourselves, we are not that, do not put and I'm not for this, the youngest PhD thing, I'm not for that, because I think PhD is unique. PhD is different for different people. So that means do not add goals which will unnecessarily add stress to your experience of doing your PhD journey, which is unnecessary. For me, if you can finish in 3 years, good for you. If you can't finish in 3 years, why not? Why we need to be all stressed out about it? We need to, because our for example, I know of some PhD, they need 4 years, minimum 4 years. Without 4 years, without this 4 years time duration, they can't finish it properly. So they need 4 years. So in this case, there are things which we put to ourselves that increase our stress, they increase our anxiety, especially when self-doubt come into the picture. We start to doubt our ability. Am I right? Am I in the right place? So then we're going to have a lot of problem. But as long as I said earlier, as long as you understand the research process, what's needed for you to start during and to complete your PhD journey, I think you will be fine. For example, I purposely highlight the concept of the scientific method. Scientific method is about why you need to do literature study, for example, why you need to do proper modeling, why you need to have a solid research methodology. So if you understand this, all the scientific approaches needed in your research, I think this will ensure that in your planning, you will address these processes. If not, you will, planning wise, you think as though you've done it, but actually you have not done it well properly, because you did not understand for example, I always ask, from time to time I do being asked to examine a PhD thesis. Sometimes I just ask a student, why do you do literature review? Some students, they cannot answer well. They cannot really answer well why they need to do literature review, for example. That means then it becomes a lot of things become in doubt, because the student herself did not know actually why he or she did that thing. So I think for a scientific method, the scientific approach of conducting yourself in postgraduate journey is part and parcel of the processes. and we must know this, because so that we will not be surprised by sudden expectation or new expectation from our perspective, from our supervisors, from our universities, because we did not capture what's needed for us to successfully complete the journey. So it boils down to trying to ensure that what is stress and what is anxiety. It is when what we expect on something did not materialize, and some different creature approach. I mean, we are asked to different expectations are asked from us, which is far different from what we expect at the beginning. So this increase anxiety and stress, and when you have your mind cannot think well, then you cannot. It's nearly impossible to deliver properly in terms of to discharge your task properly. So I would say we must accept that having problems and issues and stress during our postgraduate journey is part and parcel, okay, of the trip. So it's just we have to have the right mindset. We know what's our aim. We know what we need to do. We know what we do not know. This is another thing. Sometimes we know what we need to do, but we do not know what we do not know. Or it's good to know that you do not know something, so you make effort to get to know that thing. But the worst case scenario is that you do not know that you do not know something that is needed for your PhD, and this has only been realized at a later stage of your study, and this can, I would say to you, tremendously increase the pressure and the feeling of helplessness that one might face, especially when one is expected to already completed his or PhD, his or her PhD study or postgraduate study. Okay, so continue. Okay, so as I said, this is just the cycle. So probably can you click again? Okay, so that means the whole point of a PhD journey is for us to develop ourselves, of course, in terms of becoming an independent researcher, thinker, explorer in terms of new knowledge. But at the end, our work must then be recognized from a third party, from the assessors, so that for it to be recognized as a contribution to the field of knowledge. So my point is that these are all the processes, all the things, the steps for us that we need to do when in completing our postgraduate journey, that we must understand, and we must have the tools in order for us to manage. Okay, continue. Okay, the rest of the slide is just highlighting again the same thing. I just want to briefly go a few slides. We must understand that research community all use the same scientific method, all follow the same ethical principles. For example, repeatability. Once you say your findings is a novel contribution, there is an element of repeatability. Others can replicate your methods, and they should be getting the result that you got in terms of, for example. And then normally, for example, all acknowledge the previous work. These are all that means the research community are following very similar governing principles. So what I'm trying to say, that if you as a postgraduate student are having a lot of stress in doing your work, it's not unique. All of us, for some of us who have already done our PhD, for example, we can appreciate it is not easy. It is, but we must be able to handle it well. And no problem is not unsolvable. There's always solution. There's always a remedy to all the problems. So we need to identify that. We need to acknowledge that our problems are not unique. There are solutions, and others have faced the same path, tread the same path, have got the same problem, but they managed to overcome it. Okay, continue. Okay, sorry. This is just I was trying to highlight the thing in terms of postgraduate journey. Normally, a lot of stress a lot of pressure will come to the students in terms of publications. First, on the thesis publication, completing a proper thesis. Secondly, before being able to submit your thesis, you need to be able to publish papers. Now, this is quite common. Many universities have put a lot of prerequisite before you submit. As I mentioned earlier, like in UNIMEM, and I'm sure USM, and many other universities have put prerequisites publication, technical publication in journals and conferences before you are allowed to submit your thesis, for example. And this is a lot of stress. Imagine, for example, some students, they are not good in their English. You know, they find it very difficult to write proper technical reports. And this is just a level of preparing your writing, your technical publication, not yet being submitted to the editors for thorough inspection and thorough review. So this will consume a lot of time, a lot of efforts from the student side. So the point is, but if the student have already known that this is expected from him or her, he or she should have taken courses, training, in order classes, in order how to write and learn and do a lot of writing. For example, I'm just saying that if one cannot suddenly rise up in the morning and suddenly write a very high quality paper, they need to do it. They have done it many times, from worst to bad, something average, then good, then high quality papers. So it takes steps. So if the students, if us understood that these are expected from us, and we put efforts, initiative to cover all the basic bases, so then when expectations are there, we are able to do it properly. Okay, can I go for that? Again, this is about what's research. I think I can share the slides later, no worry. So can we go further? Okay, further. Okay, so just to recap, so what is a research characteristics? Is normally originates with a question or problem, requires clear articulation of a goal, follow a specific plan of procedure, often divides main problem into sub-problems, guided by specific problem, question, or hypothesis, accept certain critical assumptions, requires collection and interpretation of data. So I want to highlight this number 3, follows a specific plan or procedure. So normally when a student starts his or her PhD study, postgraduate study, I keep mentioning PhD because it's a longer version compared to masters. So normally we're going to have a plan, our Gantt chart, right? First year, second year, let's say first year you have to go for the defense session to defend your proposal. Second year, etc., progress report, then you go for pre-viva, viva, submission, etc. So you have a plan. But often we did not, I think the problem with students, they did not follow the procedures and the planning. Second, they did not improve, or they did not do modification to the planning due to some issues, challenges along the way. So that means when we do research, if we know, let's say, for example, let's say let's say I give my more simple example. Let's say I'm taking my children. I have 2 sons and 1 daughter. 2 daughters and 1 son. Sorry, I take them to a trip. I say, okay, wake up at 6. After subuh, we travel, right? So they will, and then I start to travel outside Perlis. Let's say, assuming rentas negeri dibenarkan, and go into, let's say, Kedah. Then they start to ask me, Abi, where are you going? Where are we going? You want any? But I did not tell them rahsia. It's a lot of stress to them because we are not sure. They are not sure. So that means they are not sure where. They thought it's just a visit to the Kanga, to the shop. So now I'm taking them outside the state to different on the highways, right? So uncertainty or things that you do not know is a to me, as a psychologist, is a source of a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. And yet, because you're not sure what you're doing, you're not sure where you're heading. So these research characteristics, research traits, or things that you need to do in your research is important, are important, because this will ensure that we are not stressed out, because we know where we are, we know where we're heading, and we know what we need to do. We can sometimes we cannot do it fully, but we know these are things that we need to do, and we are taking steps in order. As I said, remember the control block, the controller side. We need to take actions. Okay, can we continue? Okay, again, these are scientific method. Okay, go further. Okay, can we continue a bit more? Okay, again, these are more detailed. I think this is probably not specific for our topic this morning, but it's about research and how we we critically look at our problems and do deduction, induction in order for us to reach a conclusion. Can we go further? Okay, okay. Okay, let me just stop at this point. Can Dr. Rashida, can you go? Okay. No, research is about, I would say, doing PhD, for example, it's a lot. There's a lot of time where you have to reflect on many things. You have to ponder on your action. You have to reflect on the results that you got. You have to reflect on the way forward. You have to reflect on, for example, just as simple as the experimental setup. You have to reflect it. So there's a lot of soul searching in terms of thinking that going on that must be done by a postgraduate study, especially a PhD student. And this cannot be disrupted by unnecessary stress. I mean, you need time to think. It's not about, you're not racing, you're racing against yourself, you're competing against yourself. So there is a lot of opportunity, there is a lot of time, most of the time, you need to reflect on what you're doing. So this is the problem that I think some students have, because, example, you have a supervisor who supervise the student closely, until the supervisor did not give enough time for the student to think on his or her own. I've attended a Bible session before, many years ago, where every time we ask the questions, the student will look at the supervisor and somehow trying to source out some answers. And then there's a number of occasions where when we ask the students why he did certain things, he will answer, this was instructed by my supervisor. So that means there's not much thinking. So I'm saying that when there's a lot of cognitive processes needed in doing research, unnecessary stress will disrupt many things. For example, so you can't think well, whereas you need to think well. It's not just doing the experiments, but you need to think well when you do your research. So I said, the elements of observing, thinking, pondering, reflecting are very critical for research students, so that he can optimize the time that he got in order to complete the study successfully. Okay, continue, Dr. Rashid. Okay, continue. Okay. Okay, and we know, and I want to say that different kind of research, we also have different kind of stress or source of stress or pressure. So if you're doing basic research, for example, applied research, etc., there are different kind of. I would say when I did my research, I was on the more like problem solving kind of applied research kind of approach. So I was doing on underwater vision. We were trying to solve the issue of quality of image for underwater data image capturing. So there's a lot of issues, but it's like very problem solving approach. So I think you have to fit the kind of research that you're doing with the kind of your interest that you have. If you're more into fundamental kind of research, that would fit you. Okay, so continue. Again, can you continue? I think I need to wrap up a bit. Okay, so this is I think this is not mine. I got it from one of the portal. So you can see how to stress less as a PhD, as a master student or PhD student. As I said, in my own experience, I spent a lot of time on my own, because I was given a room in the Block B. I remember Block B in University of Liverpool, the Department of Electrical Engineering. I was given a room my own with all my experimental setup in my room, and that's it. So I need to do everything on my own. So sometimes a lot of stress because you feel a bit lonely and there's not much time, not much opportunity, not many opportunity to discuss with your colleagues, your PhD colleagues. So, but again, how to stress less? I agree with this like mind map, I would say. So always clarify, always, for example, take regular breaks, for example, okay, clarify your priorities and the goals. For example, spend some time on planning. This is true. I've been mentioning earlier. You have to spend some time on planning because at the end of the day, you need to plan well. Then the planning will is the marker for a successful PhD study. If the planning is out, I would say the PhD is also out because you do not know where you are in the journey. You can't measure. That's a problem. Remember what I said earlier? You measure, you monitor, you measure in order to manage. If you can measure, if you can monitor because you cannot, you do not know how to measure your progress, then how can you manage? That's the issue. So, for example, always practice in terms of thinking, be positive about it, in terms of your health, for example, in terms of your mindset, your psychological state, for example, maintain. That's why I would say doing a PhD study, you need do not just sit in the lab and just focus. You need to spend time off the lab. Build. As a person, you need to time. You cannot spend, let's say, I would say 14, 16 hours a day in the lab, not doing anything else. I think you need to mix it so that life is normal. If not, the routine itself is a stress. So in terms of eating, in terms of your time, in terms of course, there are certain habits that you need to avoid because these are all things that will introduce stress and to your journey. Okay, so I think I think I can remember where I got it, but it's not from mine. It's one of the portal, but which is representative enough of the experience that we had before. Okay, continue. So I'm towards the end of my presentation. Again, this is just from PhD. I think those who are doing PhD are familiar with PhD comics, kind of strips, cartoon strips, right? So this is this is about somebody who doubt at the end when people start to question his or her work. She starts to doubt whether what she's doing or right or wrong. And on my own experience, I shared earlier, I've seen a student, our fellows, for example, as they enter the third year, they apply to change their topics. So this is, I would say, some of the issues that may rise along the way. That you're very doubtful or you're unsure of your journey, and this is a lot of stress on both sides, to us as the funder and also to the students. Okay, can we just continue and just go to the last slide? I think. That's done. Last. Okay, I think I will wrap it at this point. I think I'm sorry again. I did not. I'm not. I may not have spoken detailed about how to manage the stress, etc. But as I say, as a control engineer, it's about us. We need to know, be mindful. We need to be mindful of where we are and what we are doing at that moment in time. If you are not mindful and we have the wrong image of our own self, that means we have the wrong presumptions of what we are, our progress in our journey, then that will trigger a lot of stresses in coming our way. So I think we need to manage our mindset, have a good mindset, and always maintain that. Always remember that if we doing a PhD or having a completing postgraduate degree successfully is desirable. We should do that. But even if we do not complete it well successfully, we have not wasted our life. We have learned tremendously from our journey, and we benefited for the future ventures in our life. So I hope you guys have learned, you've gained something from my sharing this morning. It's a bit probably unstructured way of presentation, but I hope you have gained, and I will of course share the slides if you want. So thank you, Dr. Asma. I return to the moderator. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. Rizal. I'm taking over from Dr. Asma because she's still she's still having the noise problem. All right, so thank you for Rizal for a very inspiring talk on, especially on how to manage the stress. Okay, so please, audience, if you have any question, you can just type it in the comment box, and I'll try to read it to Prof. However, there's one question, Prof, from Rashidan Saad. Dia tanya tu, So, Prof, sometimes the stress is due to the mismatch of expectations and supervision styles between supervisor and student. For example, ada supervisor yang expect student dia to be independent, tapi student ni pula jenis yang perlukan close supervision. In other cases, we also find ada supervisor yang suka closely monitor, nak everyday nak jumpa, tapi student ni jenis independent. So, it's actually a mismatch of style lah. So how do you manage this? Some people say that you need to change supervisor, cari yang sesuai dan sebagainya. So what is the best advice that you would like to give to the students that are currently facing this type of problem? Thank you, bro.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rashidan. I think again, I mentioned in my presentation that the most important parameters for a successful PhD study is a supervisor. Because supervisor, so that means the selection of supervisor is very critical. And to me, if the mismatch have been identified right from the very beginning, there is no, I think, to me, the best advice is to change supervisor. If the sponsors allow, and if the situation allow that thing to happen, because unless you have, let's say you have done the research for 3 years, suddenly you come out and say that, oh, I have a different style with my supervisor. So that's why I would say for me, research topics is secondary for me. Research topic is secondary, means it's important, but not as important as having the right supervisor. Because the right supervisor will make or break a student. So in this particular example, if the supervisor have different expectation to what the student expect in terms of style, the supervisor is very, he likes a very close monitoring, a close supervision approach. The student feel very uncomfortable for that. With that, he is more like independent. Things needs to be discussed. I think for me, things needs to be discussed with both the supervisor and student needs to discuss. The students now need to inform the supervisor of his thing, that his request, and see how it goes. Some supervisors are very open. I mean, okay, fair enough. Then we can do a reset and start again and see how we can complete it successfully. At the end of the day, it's not about. At the end of the day, we want the student, as a supervisor myself, at the end of the day, I want the student to complete successfully. It's not about he or she needs to, I need to like or dislike him. It's like he or she needs to complete it successfully. So I would advise a student to discuss with the supervisor his issues, the fact that he would like a different way of approaching, and this, there must be a negotiations. And the other options is to have a second supervisor that will assist, but be careful, a second supervisor can make or break also. If you have a second supervisor who have the same style as the first supervisor, you're dead, because I mean the student will have double jeopardy, and I mean the same the problem will be increased. So that means, but a second supervisor who is more can also become a moderator to moderate the supervision with the first supervisor. This is another approach. But to me, if the problem has been identified right at the beginning, a change of supervisor would be advisable for benefit of both parties. if the situation has been identified, let's say 2 years down the road, to me, I would still suggest a change supervisor. But if the situation doesn't permit, probably the student needs to learn to change his or her approach and to adapt to his or her supervisor. As I said, remember, it's a supervisor will make or break a student. If you, probably this is high time for the student to change his style, because he needs to make sure as much as possible to follow his supervisor approach, because ultimately he wants to complete all the study. Gaduh-gaduh tak complete pun susah kan. We want to complete the study. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prof. So there's another question from Dr. Asma. Are there any specific advice to manage the insecurity feeling that most students have, like the comics that you shared just now, which I think is a bit different than managing stress?
Yeah, true. Because this self-doubt, that means you feel insecure. I remember when I was doing my undergraduate program, my final project in Liverpool University. My supervisor only have me and myself, another colleague of mine, two of them under his supervision. His style of supervision, I think Dr. Spencer, I remember his name, Dr. Spencer, he's more like independent. I was given a task, I can report to him regularly, a week, every 2 weeks, something. But I have a colleague of mine whose supervisor, supervising at around 5 or 6 students, and he always do weekly presentation with the students. So the students have to present new progress of his project weekly, every week. So there's a lot of stress on the students because he starts to feel insecure because he was a good student, but then in the group there was masters and PhD students together in the group. So he feel a lot of self-doubt that whether at the end he persists and he finished his study. The thing is, insecure feelings is you can't run away from it. There will come a point in your study where you start to feel insecure, you start to doubt yourself. But this is where we need to communicate with others, the more experienced. If your chemistry, if your relationship with your supervisors are good, you start to communicate your insecurity, your feeling of self-doubt to your supervisors, and this is where things can be. There's a conduit to the stress, to release the stress, to enhance to strengthen your belief, to strengthen the confidence, your own confidence. So in this case, for example, it's just, I think there's 2 PhD comic strip there. But this one is about the presentation. This is nothing. I think the one that set out is the previous one, I think. So the thing is, we must accept that doubts and insecurity and part and parcel of your journey. It's just we need to communicate. We need to understand what's the source of the insecurity, and that's why I said mindset. The mindset must be right, so that we are able to absorb the problems that we are facing. So I think situlah sukan Dr. Asma how to respond. Banyak main drilling saya baca chat ni.
Dia pilih yang mana terlibat. So Prof tunggu masa lah tu, ada bunyi keluar
Itulah.
dari.
Semua tengah drag.
Okay, ada question from the audience, dia private message saya. How do you manage many students at the same time? This is from the perspective of a supervisor, I think. Bila ada student yang ramai, perangai pun macam-macam, kelebihan dan kekurangan pun macam-macam. How do you manage that? And the second thing is, what is the best method of updating from getting updates from the students? Adakah buat seminar style ni, maksudnya ramai-ramai lah meeting sekali seminggu ke, ataupun one-to-one meeting in the case of many students?
Okay, I think for supervisors, I think you have a lot. When you have many students, actually, you must very concerned on the student performance, because if a student is successful, you're going to get the good positive impact. That means the student have been successful under my supervision. And vice versa, if the student fail under your supervision, you also get the bad image. That means student fail under you. That means you did not supervise well. That means there's a lot of interest that supervisor has on the students. Okay, that means as much as I did say that the student will need to adapt to the supervisors. The same goes with supervisors. I think a good supervisor will try to adapt to the strength of the students. I think, and in my own experience, supervising master and PhD, I've seen many styles. Some students are very independent. Some students are very dependent. So to me, honestly, my students who are very dependent, they did not survive under me. Many of them. So I would suggest them to change supervisor, because I can't. Because what do I mean dependent? Dependent means they will come to me every other day with new graphs. So I wouldn't be able to. I'm not that style. I'm more generalist kind of style, but I do know what they're doing, but not. So that means for me, a supervisor needs to adapt and to the needs of the student. But the most important thing for a supervisor is that you must give the right attention to the right amount of attention to your students. You shouldn't let the student reach a point where he felt that you are not supervising, or you are not giving the proper attention to him or her progress in her work. So I would say as a supervisor, we need to manage also, and we cannot assume that all our students must always follow our style. We need to adapt, because at the end of the day, their success, we need them to be successful. As much as they want to be successful, we also need them to be successful. So I would say we need to also upgrade in terms of our style of supervision, and also we need to be more flexible on our attitude. If not, they say if you have a hammer, you treat everyone as a nail kan. Tapi dalam konteks supervisor, kalau dia punya style hammer je, kalau student dia anggap semua student macam paku then you ketuk semua orang, tak boleh There are times there are students who have different style and attitude, then we have to try to adapt. Second one is that it's open. Some student, but I would suggest a seminar. Because seminar will train the student to talk in public and to listen to critical views from their own colleagues. But for specific student, you need to add it with one-to-one meeting. That will be good, because sometimes for some of us who hold posts in university, we may not have time to call for one-to-one. Then we go seminar will be the best options. But as I said, it's good to have one-to-one supervision to those, especially students who are problematic or have some issues with their progress. And that's my comment. But I do not advise having student more than, let's say, 10 per time. I think top university, even in MIT and Japan, the top professors only maybe about 3 or 4 students at any one time, PhD student. But in Malaysia, sometimes we have 30, 20, 25 PhD student at any one time. I think when I see this kind of supervisors, I doubt that he or she supervises student well, because you can't. How do you supervise 30 students at any one time, masters and PhD? How do you wouldn't have time with all the responsibilities. So I think even if you are very excited to get more students, be careful that you do not victimize the student. That's my comment. Okay.
Okay, Prof. I have another question. Dia PM saya. Salam, boleh ke tolong tanya Prof, macam mana nak handle family or friends punya pressure? How to make them understand what PhD life is all about?
Ini soalan ni, sebab itulah dulu masa saya buat PhD, saya buat kat luar negara kan. Buat keluar negara ni dia tak payah pergi kenduri arwah, tak payah pergi kenduri kahwin, tak payah pergi kan. Bukanlah maksudnya itu. Maksudnya that's why tapi tak boleh nak guna hujah begitu kan. There are situation where we have to make them understand. Satu lagi ialah I think the point on making them understand is very critical, because people, it's like working. I mean, when you're working, you cannot take your own sweet time to go anywhere at any one time. You can just go like that, leave your job, and you have to ask permission. I think the same with PhD. I think families and friends must understand that you are not doing PhD is not about cuti inilah, cuti boleh pergi masa bila tak. It's like working. Doing PhD is actually work. So you need to be able to separate work time and family time, etc. And a PhD is not easy. I think if we can, especially, but it's nearly impossible to make sure everyone understand our situation. But at least our close, those who are close to us, like our wife, our children, if you have, and our children a bit difficult, but our parents, we must inform them what our challenges are. We cannot ensure everyone understood, but at least those close with us, because one thing that I realized doing PhD is that your support system, the family is a very good support system to anyone. Family and friends. If the family and friends are those who understood the problem that you're facing, and they appreciate that it's not easy, it's a very tough and difficult situation for you, then they will be more accommodative. So and you yourself need to be more lebih tegas dalam kita, sebab kita ada things that we need to do, and we must inform. Like as I said, like working. If I'm working now, can I just go back to my kampung? Macam tak boleh kan? I need to ask permission. I need to ensure that my schedule are not disrupted. So that's the same with PhD. So that means then if the family understood that situation, then hopefully they will know that they do not add to the pressure of doing your study. Macam itulah lebih kurang.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof.
Okay.
Ada soalan lagi tak from the audience?
Boleh kot minta maaf lah kalau minta maaf kalau ada kekurangan mana-mana.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof Rizal. All right, for a very good session. I think not only the students, tapi the supervisors also benefited a lot from your sharing, especially young supervisors like myself lah. Okay, so young. Okay, so insyaAllah kita doakan semoga semua pelajar yang sedang struggling or having stress dan sebagainya in your PhD studies to manage well and successfully complete your PhD, and hopefully it's going to be pengalaman yang sangat yang akan diingati for the rest of your life. Okay, so doing your PhD and your master is a very special moment for many of us. Okay, lastly, again, I would like to thank Prof. Rizal Arshad for his valuable sharing. And I would like to thank you all for joining us for our postgrad webinar session today. And if you have any other topics that you would like us to cover in our future webinar, do drop them in the comment box and we will try to find a good speaker like this one. Okay, so we have a lots of variations of speakers with different backgrounds and different expertise that would be more than happy to share with all of you. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a nice Jummah and have a nice Ramadan, and we'll see you in our next event. Thank you, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Rizal.
Thank you, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum.